Submit request. All right. Dude, no way. Nick, you're never gonna believe this, dude. Look, that's my car with my mileage. And then here's the S.
Oh my gosh. What?
That's crazy. 10,000. Hey guys, my name is Joe and welcome back to Finder Life. Today I want to get into something really interesting. When I picked up my C63, I was doing it because I wanted to get rid of my boring old electric car that I purchased, earlier in the year. When I started looking online, I found the perfect car. It was a white on red interior 2019 C63. I went up there, test drove it, fell in love with it, and took it home. Maybe about a week or two later, I started just searching online again, just seeing the prices, just making sure I got a really good deal on the car. And I started noticing that the C63S's were way, way more expensive than the C63 that I had. So I did some research, pulled up some stuff from forums and on the Mercedes-Benz order guide, and the results may surprise you. Before I get on with the video, guys, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us out a ton, gets us into the algorithm a little bit more quickly. So be sure to hit those buttons down below. All right, so before I get into the differences, let me start off by setting a couple of ground rules for what I'm doing on the differences here. First of all, I'm only going to be talking about model year 2019s and onward from the V8 series C63. The other rule that we're doing for this comparison is we're only going to be talking about standard vehicles. I'm not going to be touching the optional equipment. With that, let's get on with it. Let's start off with what's the same between these two cars for the 2019 model year. First of all, both cars now get the performance exhaust as standard. They're also going to get the new 9-speed transmission. I'm pretty sure it's the same one as the previous gen, they just renamed it. They're both going to get the E differential. That's what was different in the prior models between 2019s. The C63 used to get a solid diff. They're also both going to get slippery mode in the driver input modes selector. All right, so with that, let's get into the differences. Starting off, the most obvious differences between the two cars is that they're going to have different power output numbers. The C63 is going to get 469 horsepower, whereas the C63S is getting 503 horsepower. Torque numbers are also going to be different, so the C63 is going to get 479 pound-feet of torque, whereas the C63S is getting 516 pound-feet of torque. Another interesting thing is that the C63S gets the dynamic traction control system from the AMG GTR supercar. That is not an option on the C63 whatsoever.
So does your C63 have launch control or no?
It does not. So that's another difference between the cars, is that in the drive selector modes, you also get a race mode instead of Sport Plus in the C63S, and that includes launch control. So you get the option to use the paddles and change that to make it function with launch control. Another performance difference between the two cars is that the C63S gets dynamic engine mounts. I'm pretty sure it's to keep the engine balanced and level when you're driving at speed. Again, only on the 63S, not available on the C63 even as an option. Next, let's get into price. Between the two cars, the C63 was $68,750 from brand new. The C63S from 2019 started at $76,450. Next, let's get into some of the very few differences in the interiors between the two cars. Number one, let's start with the steering wheel. The steering wheel in the C63 standard car is going to be a leather wrapped all the way through, whereas the C63S is going to get an Alcantara and leather wrapped steering wheel, and then both have the option to get a full Alcantara steering wheel. The C63S gets the new AMG drive unit on the steering wheel as standard, whereas it's an option on the C63 regular model. Another minor difference between the two cars, the standard wheel size on the C63 is 18 inches. The S is going to get a 19-inch standard wheel. The C63 gets 3 exclusive rim options for the car. That being said, the C63S also gets its own 3 exclusive rim options as well. That's mainly to do with the staggered setup that I talked about earlier, and so you'll see the differences in those wheel tire sizes. Next, let's move on to the brakes. So the C63 is going to get 1-inch smaller brakes at the front. The rears are going to be identical between both cars. Another difference between them is that the C63S will get red brake calipers, whereas that's not an option on the normal C63. Next, let's talk about the top speed. Both cars are going to be electronically limited in their top speed. The C63 will be limited to 155 miles an hour, whereas the C63S tops out at an incredible 180 miles an hour, and that is limited. 0 to 60 on these cars is also different, but it's so marginal it almost makes no difference at all. The C63 goes from 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds, whereas the C63S does it a tenth of a second faster at 3.7 seconds.
Do you think it's worth it to pay $10,000 more for it?
In my opinion, $10,000 for the difference between the two cars, I mean, it really depends on how valuable the standard equipment is to you. If it was my money, I would tell you truthfully, I'm happy with the car that I got. I didn't really need any of the other stuff. I daily drive it to, the office, to go visit friends and stuff in the city, and I like the exhaust note. You get the same exact exhaust between the two. You don't really hear any difference between them. And power, honestly, I mean, you can go online and get a tune for like $500 and make 100 more horsepower, so I don't think it's a huge difference. And there you have it, guys, the differences between the C63 and the C63S. Be sure to give this video a like, and do me a favor, in the comments, let me know, would you pay the extra $10,000 for a C63S, or would you just stick with the C63? Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.